evening. Oh my goodness, I'm very live. Good evening, friends and colleagues. I'm Laura Lee Everett, the Chief Programs Officer for OPERA America. Thank you. And I'm so thrilled to be back in the Opera Center presenting a live onstage event at the as part of our onstage series here from the National Opera Center in New York City. I want to welcome all of our friends who are watching on the live stream. If you have not had a chance to enjoy the live streams from the Opera Center before, or if there's other events in the future you can't be here for, you will be able to watch them as part of OnStage, and they will be posted again in a couple of weeks. So if you have friends and colleagues you want to share the spectacular evening with, go to our YouTube channel and share it with them. I also want to give a shout out to all of those who are here as the kickoff to the 2023 New Works Forum. Our Creators in Concert series is something that we've done since the Opera Center opened in 2012. And this particular Creators in Concert evening is a collaboration that grew out of discussions with our friends and colleagues north of the border. And we wanted to be able to amplify and show opportunities where Canadian-American artists can collaborate and companies can collaborate and help support each other in producing new work that can cross borders in its storytelling as well as its creativity. So for this evening, as this is the kickoff to the New Works Forum, and I want to say thank you if you're here. I can't, took my glasses off. If T. Carroll is here, thank you for the Golette support as well. The New Works Forum is sponsored by the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, the National Endowment for the Arts, the Francis Golette Charitable League Trust, and the Theodore H. Barth Foundation. Let's have a hand for those folks who made this possible. Opera America's Onstage series is supported in part by public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council, and the programming at the National Opera Center is made possible by the New York State's Art Council on the Arts with the support of the Office of the Governor and the New York State Legislature. For this evening's event, it is my complete delight and pleasure to introduce to you, please help me welcome Jennifer Zito, the founder and artistic director for Musique, Femmes from north of the border. Jen?
Hi, friends. Good evening, and thank you so much for being here, and happy New Works Forum 2023. It's so beautiful to see everyone's faces in this room. My name is Jennifer Zito. I am the co-founder and artistic director of Musique, Femmes. We are a creation company based in Montreal. We were founded in 2018. Myself, along with our general director and mezzo-soprano, Kristen Hoff, who you'll hear from lots shortly. We are here, as Laura Lee mentioned, as the kind of the beginning of, hopefully, many more collaborations which feature, which help to foster more dialogue and exchange between Canadian and American producers. We are here to do a presentation and performance of excerpts this evening from a work that we commissioned in 2020, en pleine pandémie. I'll start by maybe just introducing you to our panelists this evening. We have to my left, your right, librettist Maria Reva. Composer Anna Pidgorna. And stage director extraordinaire Cherie Spencer, who led our world premiere in Berlin and the Canadian premiere in Montreal just a few months back. Tonight you'll be hearing from performers soprano Bridget Esler, who actually took part in all of the initial musical workshops of the piece. She was at that time still a student at McGill University. We're so thrilled to have her back and rejoin for this collaboration. And as I mentioned, Kristen Hoff. So why don't we start, maybe I'll hand things over to you all, and you can maybe talk to us a little bit about the origins of Plaything.
Sure, thank you, and thank you all for coming tonight. So this opera, Plaything, draws inspiration from the many whistleblowers and hackers who leaked government secrets, and because of that have had to either go into exile, hiding, or faced arrest. So they gave up their physical freedom for freedom of speech and information, and some of these figures have been quite controversial and problematic. So the first character you will meet is one of these hackers. So she's been in an embassy for many months, maybe even years, where she has temporary asylum. The only interaction she has with the world is through newspapers. And every morning she gets up, she looks through that day's newspaper for her name. She thinks that the world has moved on without her, so she's really trying to grasp onto any kind of sense of relevance she can at this point. And to see whether or not she's any closer to getting amnesty or pardon from her government. So as the morning routines repeat, there is a sense that she's kind of breaking down, that no, she does not want to be stuck in this room any longer. Okay, great. Good. So here's scene one. Yes.
never mind that. True freedom is freedom of speech. Today's news. Famous talking parrot Madame Suzuki escapes home. Feline friend devastated. Oh!
So both in the kind of creation process for this opera and then in the different workshops and staging, we really discovered that this particular role of the human hacker exists on a kind of spectrum between farce and seriousness, and the different performers kind of like sit in different parts of that spectrum. So Shuri, would you like to talk a little bit about kind of how you navigated that and how you worked with Kristen on that role?
Sure. I would say it was a delight to be brought into this process with Kristen having already had such a understanding of the character and the complexities of how the hacker portrays both comedy and tragedy. As you can get a sense from scene one, there's already this dilemma of what is the hacker's sense of freedom, what is the purpose to which the hacker relates to society, since that has been changed from the previous forms of freedom or amnesty. And we, throughout the opera, see how that changes and shifts emotionally and mentally for the hacker. And in those moments, I think that's where we start to see the comedy of the little quirks and the little elements that we see changed in the hacker. And I feel that with Kristen just being someone, again, that really understood the story and the background of the purpose of the hacker, it made it a little easier for me at the time when I was brought into the process to add in layers upon layers of how we're exploring the comedy and how we're exploring the drama. And it's been fun, and there's still room to continue to explore. I think it's with Kristen, she's someone that brought maturity to the elements of the darkness that we find in the hacker. And oddly enough, this was created before 2020, this opera, but part of the during. Yeah. But the irony, of course, no one anticipating what happened in the world, and so part of that humor is, for most of us, trying to remain in contact with friends or family or sense of relevancy when we're isolated. There's something in those moments, and that's what we start to see a little bit of in scene one.
Anna, you really went method for this one, huh?
Yeah, so actually I had initially kind of a hard time getting into this character and what she meant. At the beginning, she just seemed so narcissistic and farcical to me, and like very surface level. And I was really struggling with how to portray her musically. And then about 6 months into the pandemic, this is like fall 2020, I am sitting there on my phone and I'm like obsessively checking Facebook and Instagram and like posting pictures of this like little stuffed mouse, and then obsessively checking like how many likes it's gotten, and suddenly it's like, oh my god, I am like the hacker in this opera. I'm like obsessed with my social media presence, and then like something clicked finally. So yeah, it was like method composing, which is sort of what I do. So yeah, and that kind of allowed me to also see the darker sides behind the farce. And what you didn't see in this scene is the opera actually starts with her going through the entire morning routine of her waking up. She like rips the calendar page, she winds a clock, and then this cloche slides out, like with a breakfast tray covered with a cloche, and then inside is the newspaper that she checks, and that happens in almost every scene. So I had to develop a kind of like mental and musical choreography for how this was gonna go, and then each scene it changes depending on the character's mental state. So a lot of the farce kind of comes from that. And then in terms of the overall approach to the musical approach to the character, she combines kind of, this like grandeur narcissism with this sense of a kind of pathetic vulnerability. So a lot of her lines have this sort of almost Straussian neuromanticism to them, kind of like big and expansive, and then just like sort of droopy.
So she's singing them wearing a bathrobe and fuzzy slippers.
Yes, yeah, and like, she's been like wearing this clothes for 5 years or something. Like, yeah.
Not relatable at all, I don't know. So there is a second character to this opera, and we won't give anything away before we do scene 2, but it's a rather bombastic personage. Do you want to talk a little bit about her?
So in the next scene, again, we've gone through the morning routine. The hacker has seen nothing about herself in the newspapers. Again, there's this sense that the world has moved on without her. But then so she goes back to sleep, but her sleep is interrupted by a visitor who shows up at her windowsill.
That's my cue.
tell us a little bit about how this character came to be?
Yes, so the parrot character was a challenge to write for me because I didn't want to just have a talking animal on stage. I thought it would might be too on the nose if you have, you know, this human playing an animal and saying things like, "Here are my thoughts on this," and "Here's what I feel." So instead, we used the mimicry aspect of parrots to convey what happened in the parrot's past life and her emotions as she's remembering those events. So really, so everything you're hearing the parrot say is something, it's like a patchwork from her past life. And so she recycles bits of that and bits of what the human, the hacker has told her, and yeah, not really until the end of the opera that she actually says something on her own.
Why is she called Madame Suzuki?
Why is she called Madame Suzuki? Yes, because of David Suzuki, a very important Canadian environmental activist. Yes.
Yeah, and constructing this character musically was also a really interesting challenge. Basically, in the libretto, up until, I don't know, the fourth scene, it mostly just says parrot is making sounds. and it roughly being like chainsaws, sirens, you know, suggestive of the Amazon. Yeah, it was an interesting process. Basically, for a while I sat in my room and I vocalized a bunch of stuff. I'm also a singer of sorts. And my goal was to kind of create a role that could be done by a classically trained singer without like specialized extended technique training, but still be able to convey these kinds of special sounds. So I created a whole bunch of like these little cells of experiments and then handed them over to kind of the original parrot singer we were working with, Rachel Cram, and then she tried them out, and we talked through it of how does that feel in her voice and what's working, what's not working, and then from there the role kind of just like developed organically. And then actually through that process we kind of discovered that the parrot could go even deeper, and we ended up exploring her interiority a lot more, which we'll discuss later. But in terms of how this part is notated, it exists on a kind of spectrum between just like standard musical notation, notes on a staff. Then there are kind of like a single line with full note heads to indicate a general shape, but still a sound. Then there can also be a single line with rhythmic notations with rough shaping, which is more supposed to be a recitation, which you'll hear more of that later on. And then as far as kind of non-spoken sounds, I'm still using kind of vowels and consonants from speech to create things like, corral, corral. So that's notated in like IPA, or like a chainsaw, krr, 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 krr. All of that is just vowels and consonants in the score, so it doesn't require any special training to execute.
And I might add also dramatically, for me, the parrot is a very interesting and I'd say very fun character, which musically there's times when parrot is, like Anna is saying, is portraying more spoken sounds, and then there's times when it's interwoven with more linear musicality, and that back and forth lends to a lot of fun in terms of movement and things that we got to do with the parrot in terms of costume and how the parrot's moving on stage, and sort of, as you would have seen a little glimpse as also Maria was mentioning, the background of the parrot is kind of communicated at certain times when parrot is either speaking or saying certain syllables. So it allowed for me to really see the parrot as not just this character that is saying basic bird sounds and is very linear and one-dimensional, but this character that has gone through some deep stuff, and that making it really interesting to see and to also to relate to the parrot. And something also which is really cool, I would say the parrot in previous renditions isn't always played from a female. So the way both Anna and I would say Maria created parrot is that there's fluidity in terms of who can play the parrot.
Yeah.
And actually, same with the human character. Like we happen to be working with two female identifying singers, but there's nothing like specifically female about the human role either. It can be done by a male identifying actor as well, and we have
non-binary as well,
or non-binary. Really, any person could do this role, and we actually workshopped it with a baritone as well, and it worked really well. And we tried the parrot role with a tenor too. It has a very different effect than if a soprano is doing it, but it still works.
Yeah, so the parrot in the next scene has like a big role. You guys talk about physicality. You guys want to chat a little bit about what happens in scene 3. So unfortunately, we don't do any of scene 3, so will you give a little bit of insight into what happens before with aria?
Yes, so first some context. So in the next scene, what you would normally see would be that there's a tiny article that the human finds about herself in that morning's newspaper. And it's about how the human has this new parrot friend. So the human starts to see that, she can regain relevance in the media by using this bird. So she traps the parrot before the window is open. The human traps the parrot, and she gives Madame Suzuki a new name, which is Amnesty. And she teaches Amnesty a pretty awful jingle about how the human deserves to be freed and pardoned, and it's not an indoor human. So then we have this interaction between the parrot and the paparazzi, who are played by the instrumentalists. And the paparazzi misinterpret the parrot's cryptic sounds and the garbled jingle as code. And they think that, the hacker has new government secrets she's about to leak. So suddenly the hacker, skyrockets to the media lens again. She's going to be all over the news, and this is really the height of our hacker's powers, or her perceived powers. And she's overjoyed. So in the scene that you're about to see, it happens at night while the human is asleep.
Repeat after me.
14 mans. 14 mans. 14 mans.
no treat for you. Stop doing that. Stop doing that. No treat for you. In one country is there be married forests. Good bird, want a treat, good bird, again, again, again. Do you like? Do you like? Do you like? Do you like having a home? Me too, me too, me too. At least you have fire insurance. Good bird, again, again, again. Five boots. 5 boots. Die, die, die. Every 90 apples, 200% of all human touch SpongeBob fields. Stop doing that, pretty bird. Stop doing that, pretty bird, you won't be. Pretty bird, you won't be. Pretty bird, you won't be. Keep it caged, keep it caged, keep it caged. It's good for it, it's good for it. Keep it caged, keep it cute, keep it cute, 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 cute. The folk raising committee hall is convened. It won't survive the world again. We'll keep it for its own good. Good for it, good for us, good for the trees. Stop doing that, stop doing that. You won't be pretty anymore. Stop, stop, stop doing that. You won't be pretty anymore. Better
We certainly find a rich exploration of the interiority of that character in that scene. I always find.
Yeah, and actually I'd like to just take an opportunity to talk a little bit about our working process with Maria. So Maria is actually my sister, and we live together in one house. So it creates a really kind of unique opportunity to really build an opera from the ground up together. So it's not like she wrote the libretto completely by herself and then handed it to me and then I wrote the music. There's a lot of kind of back and forth. So this scene was really kind of built in the process So we were already working on the opera when, kind of through workshopping, we decided that, we needed to explore the interior side of the parrot, that she's not just this comedic, kind of farcical character. There's a lot going on in her. And so Maria wrote some text for this, but the text is really, it's like half a page of these little phrases. And then for me as a composer, that was such an ideal environment. I had so much freedom to really play with the words and really play with their sound and the potential musicality and then potential physical gesture. So, this half a page stretched to like 10 minutes almost. And like for me, it was so much fun to work in that way. Do you want to say?
Well, the rest of us were stuck at home with our families. You guys are writing an opera. It's amazing.
No, it's really wonderful. We haven't killed each other yet. So, to live together and to be able to collaborate so closely, because I think, the more traditional relationship between librettists and composers is that kind of conveyor belt, I guess, where, first the libretto gets written and then the music, and there isn't as much interaction between the two, but even with the music, I mean, I also, when I'm in workshop and when I hear it, I have feedback about it as well, and incorporate some of it, so.
Yeah, and there's a lot of we have a lot of discussions about the meaning and which direction it needs to go and what kind of mood needs to be conveyed, and it kind of goes back and forth. Yeah.
And I would add to that, what was really nice, especially for scene 4 for the parrot's aria, is that blend of really well written music and also the text. That for me, I consider one of the most demanding arias that I've seen a singer have to portray physically, and add narration as to how that's adding to the story. There's a lot of context, which of course is easier to see once it's in the full production, but the understanding of, as we mentioned in the beginning for scene 1, there's that balance and that tension of comedy and drama, and what we see in scene 4 with the parrot is really we're starting to understand that background of what the parrot endured before the parrot arrived at that windowsill. And we're starting to understand now those deeper levels of the parrot as its own character of forms of trauma that it's experienced, and how every time it says certain syllables, it has a very physical, visceral impact, and even the elements of plucking itself, of ruffling the feathers, and that kind of informing for us, who are we when it the very first thing that the parrot says in that aria is who am I? And so there's that sense of, okay, we're taking in this really crazy character that we saw in scene 2 and 3 just be a comedy relief of sorts. But then we start to understand, oh no, there's more to this. There's a complexity. And we also see the parrot come to its own form of consciousness and not just repeating things from its past, but starting to actually formulate its own sense of words. So in terms of when I look at this opera and the themes of freedom and how it really portrays what is freedom, how do we all adapt when our forms of normalcy or what we're used to is changed, be it intentionally or out of our control, how do we adapt to that, and what is our sense of agency in that? And I feel scene 4 is a really great portrayal in terms of depiction and narration of how we can relate to the parrot, and how each of us, when we're in those moments of, hey, things have shifted, we've all come to this point in time with our background and our experiences, but do we choose to let that still be what brings us forward to our next steps along our journey, or do we actually make choice? And so we're now starting to see at this part in the opera a role reversal beginning to take place between the hacker and this, what we used to think is a nonsensical parrot.
So tell us a little bit about scene 5's. You mentioned a little power struggle there.
So we're just going to do a portion of the last scene because we don't want to give away the ending, but Maria, can you just tell us a little bit?
Yes, so in as I said before, so human at this point is at her highest point. She's really thinking she's going to get that pardon, and she's finally going to be able to leave this room. But the parrot is pretty much at the lowest point. Yet again, she's being used. It is being used as a puppet by yet another human. And as you've seen, she's been plucking feathers, which is what birds do when they're stressed, but also I think there's this growing awareness in this character that the uglier she makes herself, the less of a plaything she can be to other people.
She's not cute.
Yeah, she's not cute. That's right. So in the next scene, the parrot plucks more, and try to imagine that there's this growing pile of feathers on the floor.
no amnesty, no amnesty, no amnesty, no amnesty, no amnesty, no amnesty for me. 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 No amnesty for me.
Too much fun flying around. We have maybe just a few minutes left. We'd love to just have a few questions, if there are any questions from the audience about the creation and development of this piece, any of its themes. Bridget and Kristen, you must be super out of breath. Come on up, guys. But curious to hear from the singers and what their experience was. Any questions in the audience? I can hand over the mic. Yes. Go ahead, Cynthia.
It's not so much a question, but I just wanted to congratulate you because it was brilliant. And I absolutely loved the way that you musically contrasted the words of the human and also the parrot. So the way that you had very the sounds with the parrot, you contrasted what the sound effects as well as what she said. I thought it was really effective. The rhythmic aspect and the timing, very economical. I mean, you guys are really good. The way you had rhymes or imperfect rhymes at certain moments. I had some notes. I know feedback's important, so hopefully my combo, like feedback, can give you some help. I loved the fact that you had some childlike innocence with the parrot, where she's kind of beginning to understand her own consciousness. At the beginning, she's so such a fun being, but then as she became more and more, in a way, humanized, came into her identity. I liked that you repeated the line, "You were a wild thing." The human said that, and then the parrot said that back to the human at a certain point in the first scene. So that was really, that's something that I thought was effective. The whole aria was really good. You had the justification, the human justification for imprisoning the wild parrot toward the end, which I thought was very cleverly snuck in there, with the parrot repeating what the human was saying to the parrot, rather than hearing the human say that. So that was kind of stuck in there very, very effectively. And I loved how the music from the beginning came back at the end, with the words coming back with the words. And the teaching how to fly, so that movement at the very end, stop it, repeating as well. So where she was repeating, the parrot was repeating that back to the human. So also the idea about society liking beautiful things or pretty things.
Thanks, Cynthia. It's
Thank you
super
so much.
helpful. Yeah, you're right. I mean, feedback is that's weight in gold. I'm kind of curious because I know, Maria, there were several alternate endings that were possible. I kind of wanted to, I don't know, I wonder if I can pose that question, how do you guys decided to kind of wrap the piece up in terms of the story here?
Well, we had two different endings we were working with. One of them was more, and I'm not going to give them away, but one of them was more concrete, where you know exactly what happens. And the other one, the one we went with, it's more ambiguous, and it can be interpreted two very different ways.
I was kind of playing with like magic realism versus reality, and you can kind of choose what you want to believe. Kind of like in Pan's Labyrinth, the movie at the end, where you want to believe that the little girl goes to live with the fairies. Yeah.
Any other questions for the team? Yes, go ahead.
First of all, congratulations. Just out of curiosity, do any of you live with a parent?
We used to have budgies when we were kids, yeah.
But we hope they were a lot happier than this. No feather plucking.
Well, I've always had parents, and I actually had one that plucked.
I'm sorry.
And my partner's always like, "Oh, you need to put a parrot in your opera." I'm like, "Yeah." So that's kind of wonderful how you guys do that. And also, there's parents can teach us, as any animal, teach us a lot. And they're kind of always in the present, but as you say, regurgitating the past but still being in the present. And I thought that was kind of cool, the way you you did evoke a parrot in your movements. That was just the being, basically just the present and in your own mindset, and it's always a struggle to communicate, and you do learn how to communicate in various ways. And I don't know, it's very hard to describe.
Well, Bridget, you've been kind of with the piece for a while. What was the experience like workshopping this role? It sits quite outside of a typical Sopranos fare. So.
Yeah, so I first came to the piece about 1.5 years ago, and at that time I was in the last year of my undergraduate degree at McGill University, and I hadn't done very much contemporary music at that time, nor had I done very many extended techniques, nor had I had the opportunity to work with
Trial by fire.
yeah, with a composer and librettist in the room. So it was a whole lot of new things happening all at once. And it was very exciting, but it was daunting when I first got the score, I will say, because I hadn't seen many scores that looked like that before. But in terms of learning the role, I actually found quite quickly that the way it was notated and the way it was written with the voice in mind, because another singer had been working with them previously to me joining the project, it was just very intuitive, actually, to get it into my voice and my body. And something that I particularly love about the parrot, about the way she's written, is that, as Anna was mentioning before, a lot of her material is not specifically pitched. There's a melodic contour, but not specific pitches that you have to get. So that gives me a ton of freedom, actually, as a singer, to not have to be so worried or focused on getting those pitches exactly right, but rather creating the melodic shape that we want. But then I really have the freedom to focus on the vocalization, which of course is quite extreme, and also the character. In this case, really the characters that the parrot inhabits, because she has many different, there are many different people living within her. So it's nice to be able to really put all of my focus into that when I'm singing it in those particular passages. And the challenge has been memorizing, for sure, but nothing a little practice can't fix, or a lot of practice.
You're being very modest. I find something that kind of comes up for us when we discuss this piece is really that fine balance between the darkness and the humor. I'm just kind of curious, Maria, is this something that features in your work often? Is this, how do you play with those two ideas in your work?
Yes, I would say it does feature in my work pretty often. I think that just reflects life too. Even in the most sad moments, there can always be some sort of absurd humor. And I think also when tackling dark subjects, I use humor as that Trojan horse, where you think you're kind of being welcomed into the subject as, as a reader or as an audience member, and you get comfortable in the world. And I think that you can kind of absorb these really dark themes with that kind of cushioning of humor.
Yeah, very cool.
Well, we're Ukrainian, and that's been such a big feature of the last year for us. The horrible stuff happening in our country, but also the amount of humor that comes out of Ukraine. It's insane. Like, as soon as anything bad happens, there's already a million jokes about it. And Ukrainians just take every opportunity to laugh when they can laugh. Like, there's a lot of crying, but when we can laugh, we laugh, because that's like the only way to survive and process everything that's happening.
And adding, I feel Maria did a really beautiful job, as she mentioned, of sharing really important moments, like when Para is talking about 14 Manhattans burning. That's a real, that's the impact of deforestation, of our impact as humans on what was this creature's home, and the shift that this creature has had to endure from our behaviors. So, but it happens, it's so beautifully packaged within this aria that there's so many other elements that it can be sometimes, I guess, not seen, because you have a really beautiful way of balancing the comedy and drama, but it's there. And I think that's a testament to your writing style.
Yeah, very cool. That must be such a meaty character to type a role to sink your teeth into, Kristen. I'm amazed at what you bring to it. But how did you kind of approach this really complex anti-hero, really?
A lot happens to human in a very short time in this opera, and a lot has happened directly preceding this opera. So there's really a lot to unpack. And I think initially I was very drawn, I am still drawn to the comedy of the morning routine and how Isla's emotional state affects her actions. It can be quite funny. You'll have to come to the full show to see that. I love the physical humor, and I actually kind of realized that through this role, because having a relatively dramatic mezzo voice you don't necessarily get physical humor roles very often. And this was a really good opportunity to realize how much I like doing that. I guess there's a part of me that's a little bit of a clown. But as I sunk my teeth deeper into the role, I also had to come to terms with the fact that at this moment, Isla has fallen so far. When the opera starts, she's at really, really close to her bottom already. She has been at the top. Everyone has loved her. Everyone was talking about her. She was a star, and she really enjoyed it. And at this point, when the opera starts, that has all gone away. She's forgotten, and she's feeling completely worthless. So I think there's no moment in the opera when I can't be connected to that real loss and tragedy that she's feeling, and in spite of allowing for those kind of emotional states to create comic moments as well. I don't think there's ever going to be a moment, if I continue to sing this role again, that I'll say, oh, I got it, that's the balance. Because there's so much complexity. But I think that's also what makes it something that I'm just so excited to come to every time, because you can dig so far and find so many new things, and I don't tire of it.
Well, I'll just say on behalf of the team, thank you so much for having us. There are some amazing Canadian companies doing some amazing work. We encourage you to reach out to your local friendly Canadian at the forum, find out what they're doing. We're really, really pleased to be here. Musique, Femmes, we seek to kind of bring more emerging female composers and librettists to the stage to create creations just like this one. And we are really, really pleased to be here to share in the community of the forum. So thank you so much for having us, Lori.
Thank you so much, Jen. Thank you all. And thank you everyone for joining us this evening. There are more delightful snacks and drinks and treats. Treats. In the lobby, please.